Oh, fired up! We're back, baby. Episode 4, 2020. Still haven't gotten canceled. Things are good here. I don't know if things are good for sports, but things are good for us here at All Fired Up. With me, as always, Jordan the Fox, Mr. J. Fox. Thank you for joining me.
Always.
Next to him, as always, LA's finest, dirtiest, finest, debatable, classiest. We will see later. Mr. Jonathan Guerrero. And in case anyone's looking him up, it's Jonathan with an A towards the end, not an O. He gets very mad when you look him up. And
It's not a thon, it's a than. Come on.
I'm learning, and I want all your fans to be able to find you properly when they're searching for you on your social media pages. And last but not least, producer extraordinaire, Yankees fan, unhappy Jets fan, Mr. Joey Clax. Welcome back.
How we doing?
Doing pretty good today. Some things that Jonathan and I have been talking about off air, I don't know, for maybe 6 months now. And I figured we just got to stop talking off air about it. I'm sick of the conversation. I'm absolutely sick of it. These two guys with me and Jonathan right now are probably sick of me and Jonathan going back and forth.
I'm sick of it.
We're gonna just address it. Yeah, we're gonna address it live here, and it's a kind of an interesting dynamic because he kind of has a dog in the fight. I don't have a dog in the fight, so there's a lot of different ways that we're looking at this. Clax has a dog in this fight to a point, I would say for sure. And,
To a point.
And Jordan doesn't either. So it's going to be a fun debate, I think. We're talking about the Houston Astros, or as Jonathan calls them, the Asterix. And we all know they got caught cheating. Now, there's different levels of cheating, and you've heard this from most cheaters out there. But there's different levels of cheating. I personally think their punishment was fair. I think the players should be punished, obviously, for what they did. I mean, there's no doubt about it, but due to the circumstance, there's no way that any of this would have come out if the players didn't get immunity. None of them would have talked. None of them would have ratted out Beltran. None of them would have ratted out Cora or the Big Bats or Altuve and his recorded device. Nobody would have done any of this if they didn't have immunity. Because you would have said, hey, Bregman, we want you to tell the truth, but we're going to suspend you for a year. Or you could say nothing and you could just go play. What do you think he's going to do? So they had no option other than to give the players immunity if you want to punish the organization and stop this baseball-wide. With that being said, I think what they got fined is that the $5 million they lost, which is nothing for billionaires. That's BS, obviously. But first and second draft picks for a couple of years, that's huge for an organization that does draft well. The person who drafted them, their GM, out. Their manager, out. All these guys got fired and are out, so that's punishment. The first and second picks, which John doesn't think is a big deal in baseball, I know that for a fact, got them in 4 years consecutively, Correa, Altuve, Bregman, and Springer. So that's 4 all-stars they got in the draft with those first picks. So you take that away, who knows what their team would even be like. So I do think that the punishment is fair. If they would have said it was more punishment for the organization, I wouldn't have complained, but I don't think it needed to be less. That's my first part when it comes to the Astros punishment. Second part of this conversation is the cheating aspect. And I know, Jonathan, you think this is the worst thing that's ever happened in baseball for the most part. I
mean, since my favorite team, the Black Sox, yes.
Okay, the Black Sox scandal, I mean, so that's gambling. Gambling in general is the worst thing you could do for any sport. Tim Donaghy in the NBA could have ruined it if that got deeper. Pete Rose in baseball, betting on your own team, even if it's to win, is no good because that means in the days you're not betting on your team, you're tanking your team because you don't care. So gambling is the number one no-no. You gamble, I think everything should go away. Zero, erased. They shouldn't even be in the record books anymore. With that being said, there's things that they do in the game right now that I think is worse than sign stealing. For instance, pitchers scuffing a ball. Seems like no big deal. Let me tell you, you put a little bit of pine tar on your hand. Michael Pineda, remember that?
Yeah, of course.
Remember he was like 9-1 with an ERA of like under 2 to start that season?
He was lights out.
Yeah.
He was lights out.
Do you remember him coming back and not doing so well afterwards and having to change his motion all because of it, and then he blew out his elbow?
I think Michael Pineda was fixing my wife's car at the auto body shop when I stopped to check it out on my way home tonight, because that's where he is now, because he's not pitching in the MLB anymore.
It is one of those things that scuffing a ball completely changes more than knowing the pitch. It literally moves the pitch. It gives you an ultimate control where pitchers are throwing so hard right now. Any little thing like that can make the biggest difference. On the flip side for the hitters, corking a bat. Someone like Sammy, a ball coming back at a pitcher right now off a regular wooden bat will kill him almost if it hits him in the head. Tanaka almost got his head taken off his shoulders from Stanton. Imagine if that bat was corked and that ball came off at 15, 20 miles per hour faster. You'll never get your hand up as a pitcher. It's so dangerous. So those are just a couple of in-game things that I personally think are actually worse than sign stealing, because sign stealing goes back at least 75 years. You could go back to the shot heard around the world, Bobby Thompson for the New York Giants back in 1960. Guess what? In the outfield, they had somebody with binoculars holding their hand up every time someone put down a 1 for a fastball so that Bobby Thompson knew what pitch was coming. No one talks about that like it's a big problem. It's not a camera. They didn't have technology. That was their camera back then. That was the best they could do. So I'm going to leave the floor to you, John, in about 20 seconds, but I'm going to leave it at this. Other sports like football, in between Tom Brady runs off the field, what's the first thing he's looking at? The iPad of everything that was just happening in real time. You think that those cameras aren't facing the other coaches on the other team and looking at whatever's on the other side of it? They have to have so many things covering up now. They cover their mouths. They do everything they can just so that the cameras don't steal their signs. Why is baseball different? Like, why is it the unwritten rules? John, the floor is yours.
Well, so we have a lot to break down here. We have to break down a lot here. So with the general, we're trying to differentiate between what cheating is worse and what do you consider worse cheating when it's all bad? Like it shouldn't be. I hate you. So scuffing the baseball, yeah, that's terrible. But let's start on the Astros. Video stealing the signs. I mean, we talk about the integrity of the sport. What integrity is left after this? Like, and the fact that they got off, you think they had they were reprimanded fine? I don't think the draft picks, whatever. Ooh, you lose the first 2 round draft picks for 2 years. Okay. A $5 million fine, nothing. And they're suspended from the league for 1 year. And luckily this year is, as we've seen in baseball, is like a non-year. They could hire them back. And looking at the Astros organization, I don't think it's above them or under them they could hire those guys back.
Okay, but what should they have done to the organization that's worse in your opinion? What would the punishment be?
If they couldn't punish the players because they wanted them to speak, they needed to strip the title. We need to call, there needs to be just the AL, NL champions, and that's it.
They got the rings. It happened. It happened.
No, it happened, and it could be erased as well, because that's what needed to happen.
So if someone had a scuffed ball and we found out they were cheating with a cork bat, do we take where's your line of where you could take, if someone's gambling, do we take it away? What is your line of taking away titles? Doesn't happen. College sports, what they do is they strip them, and then 20 years later they come back all of a sudden.
I'm about to say Reggie Bush.
Yeah, it all comes back. It's just for sentimental value to make the other team feel better about themselves. But stripping titles, and that's one thing I should have even brought up. That is not an option. It happened. They lost. They got caught afterwards. They got punished. But stripping the title means it didn't happen. And you already said you don't want it given to the Dodgers, right?
Well, no, absolutely not, because it's so it's not fair to the Yankees as well. It's not fair to every team that the Astros played through the entire year. They cheated the entire sport that whole 2017, 2018, however long they've been doing that.
So
and
do we strip like the 2009 Yankees of their World Series because A-Rod was on the juice, Cano was on the juice, all these guys
that's single player. This was a player-driven organizational cheating scam.
Not every player did it. Not every player did it. They came out, the players even said not every player did it. And it didn't alter the entire game. It was for when the Astros batted. Why did Bellinger bat in the 100s? Why couldn't he hit a curveball inside? Why did Verlander dominate your hitters? It had nothing to do with cameras. It had to do with the Dodgers. If the Dodgers put up 5 runs a game, they would have won the World Series. But without cameras, they didn't. So they don't deserve to have anything stripped, in my opinion. I think they should have if you want to put an asterisk on it, put an asterisk because they cheated. Just like bonds should be, in the Hall of Fame, put an asterisk on his name, but he should be there because he's the best. And they were the best that year. Whatever they had to do to get there, they got there. Just like the Yankees in 09, right, Clax?
I want to put an asterisk on that moonshot that Altuve hit in Game 7 in the ALCS last year. That's I want to put an asterisk. Yeah, off a Chapman.
And, yeah.
And the recorder he had on his chest. But that's the only asterisk I want to put on it.
And yeah, like if our offense struggled, but if their offense didn't know what pitch was coming, maybe their offense would have struggled too. So it made it more fair. Yeah, like Bellinger couldn't hit a curveball to save his life in 2017. That's fair. What's not fair is knowing what pitch is coming to you every single time, and that's gonna affect the game 100%. And there's no way. And like I said,
I agree.
The union. I mean, besides like the one thing I go to because we can't punish the players, which I want to punish the players. I want them to be suspended or whatever that they had to do, but they can't because the union has to care about all the players and not just
the strongest union in all of sports.
Right. So we couldn't, like, honestly, there's going to this new, what happened with Joe Kelly this past week.
Yes, bring up Joe Kelly. Go.
People are throwing at people hate the Astros. A lot of, not just the Dodgers, a lot of teams across the league have a big problem because they feel that they were not punished justly. And the fact that this happened, it's all on them not being punished correctly, and also them acting like entitled babies or like victims throughout this whole thing.
Okay, so John, here's my question for you about the Joe Kelly. Clark, you got something?
This is why we can't have nice things, right? Like, it's the same thing with the 09 Yankees. Like, you can't just give the Dodgers the win last season. You can't just give the Yankees the win last season. And the Yankees and A-Rod and Cano cheated in 09 because they were all juiced up, and the Astros cheated.
They cheated while steroids were illegal, John. It wasn't like back when Bonds did it and they were legal. They were actually illegal. They just got away with it.
And
I'm not saying that's okay.
And they got away with it. And all the Astros didn't cheat last year, but you can't just throw the book at them. But just because
Verlander doesn't deserve a ring the way he pitched. Are you kidding me?
And he does, but they tainted the sport so disgustingly. The whole thing is just sour. It's just disgusting.
You said the word right there, John. Maybe they should have made part of their punishment, their logo should have just been a taint for being tainted. Wouldn't that have been? You got to sell merchandise with that. It has to be on their hat. Yeah.
It's not a solvable problem, in my opinion. It really doesn't have an easy solution. And this is what MLB's problem is.
But here's my problem. So the joke.
I'll tell you what MLB's problem is. Manfred. That's what MLB's problem is.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. My issue right now is with this Joe Kelly problem. Everyone keeps saying it's not enough punishment. It was enough. I mean, or it's too much punishment. It's not enough punishment. It's too much punishment. It's not enough punishment.
He got over punished for sure.
It was perfect. It's perfect for a reason. You know what's worse than cheating? Throwing a ball 100 miles per hour at somebody's head. That is wrong. That can kill you. That is worse. That is just as no.
Hey, Ethan, how many MLB players have died from getting hit in the head? I just want to ask you that stat.
1 or 2.
I think it's 1 when they didn't wear helmets. But besides the point, I understand what you're saying with that.
That's 1 too many.
How many careers? Let's change that question because I have an answer to this. How many careers have ended from getting hit in the head?
Do you know? I don't.
Well over a dozen, and that's with helmets. And you know what? Getting hit in the face or head with a baseball, so it doesn't kill you, but it can, and it can end your career. That, in your opinion, is deserving of someone looking at a camera and hitting a trash can. And to me,
I know. Now you're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say it was deserving. I think this is a response of the MLB ineffectively punishing the Astros.
Say it was wrong.
Not saying that
it was wrong then.
No, I mean did he hit somebody?
He tried his hardest. As you admit, Joe Kelly sucks. He has no accuracy.
Did he hit somebody? So if you attempt to murder somebody and you murder somebody,
Yes.
Is there a sentence that's different?
Yes.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna have to.
If he would have killed the guy, he would have been out of baseball forever. So yeah.
Right.
Okay, so he was suspended for 8 games, which accounts for over about almost 22 games in this 60-game season.
Yeah.
So he was charged like hit somebody when he didn't. He was charged for making a silly face against the Astros.
Was he warned before? Don't headhunt the Astros. He could have hit him right in the butt. And guess what? He would have got a 2 or 3 game suspension. That would have been it. But he threw at the guy's head once. Then he threw at Bregman's head first. Then he threw at Correa's head. That's headhunting. And
It doesn't matter. He didn't hit them. He didn't hit them, and that punishment doesn't match the crime.
Jonathan, Jordan, I got a question for you. Excuse me. Football, they outlawed helmet to helmet, correct?
Yes.
Why?
Because you could seriously injure somebody, and even if you possibly, slightly do it, if it looks like it, you get punished that way. And if it clearly shows that this was kind of premeditated, they're going to shut that down even more to let the whole league know this can't happen. So yeah, it may not be good for him personally, but it wasn't for just him. It was for the whole league to let everybody know if anybody throws at somebody's head, specifically the Astros, it's going to be bad for you.
And I understand that clearly. They were warned before the season, and
he did it.
But
he got the punishment. What's the part that's confusing? I don't like.
It's not confusing. All I'm saying is that everything was drawn like it would. We knew it was going to happen because the MLB didn't do enough to punish the Astros.
Okay.
So that's it. That's
you brought up to me, John. You brought up that. Hey, did you see these tweets from these MLB players supporting them?
Yeah. You're Marcus Stroman and Mike Clevenger.
Right. What position do they play?
It doesn't matter. They're MLB players.
They're pitchers.
They're on the.
They're not up to bat getting the ball thrown at their head. That's the difference. The people that are getting a ball thrown at their head, none of them are like, yeah, take it at their heads, get them in the head. None of them. Pitchers that don't hit at all anymore are like, yeah, let's headhunt it because there's nothing they can do to us except for charge the mound, and I'll back up for my first baseman to come in. So no. Headhunting. No.
Yeah, headhunting in general, yeah, I understand that. But this situation is different completely. And also, why was Dave Roberts suspended for a game? And why did none of the Astros players for leaving the dugout and going over to the Dodgers dugout during a pandemic? Nobody. Nothing happens to the Astros.
They didn't do anything.
Why?
Suspended. They got a ball thrown at their head. What do they suspend them for getting a ball thrown at their heads?
Right.
You said no confrontations. You're not supposed to go to the other team. They came out and they came to our dugout.
So who do you want to be suspended?
I think there should be punishment. What did Dave Roberts get suspended for?
I have no idea. I don't even think they said it. Dave Roberts hasn't fought it. He said, I deserved it, and he took it. So he's cool with it. I'm cool with it. You know what's funny? Who's the only other person – actually, because none of them got ejected in that game. Who's the only person to get ejected this season? Do you know?
It was a manager from – was it the I don't know.
Relief pitcher, Greg Holland. He got ejected. But do you know where he got ejected? He wasn't pitching.
No, he was in the stands.
He was sitting in the stands arguing balls and strikes like a fan. And the umpire turned around and kicked him out of the game. And I love baseball without fans. We got to keep this going as long as we can. It's pretty amazing. Another thing I want to say, someone is now out, Mr. Mike Trout. Paternity leave. John, maybe he's not coming back. We don't know. I might have been right all along. We'll see.
I think he'll be depending. I mean, it's day to day whether the MLB is going to continue. So Mike Trout might come back, and then the MLB might just stop.
Yeah, completely. I heard today. Breaking news about 2 hours ago. Lorenzo Cain decided he's out. He doesn't feel safe playing for the Brewers anymore. So he called it a season. And it's kind of interesting. I was watching the Brewers. Do you know that Christian Yelich is batting .032 so far this season? MVP candidate, everyone probably had them in their top 3 or 5, I would say. The guy's like 2 for 40 to start the season. Crazy. The guys that are leading the league batting 500, the stars, Bellinger's batting in the 100s, I think. I don't know what's going on, but baseball's really wacky this year. I personally don't think it's going to keep going. Clax, what do you think? What about this Marlins disaster? Oh my gosh.
I think that it's going to be over within the next 10 days.
10 days?
Which makes me so sick to my stomach. And we talked about it. If it wasn't last week, it was the week before. There should have been 4 bubbles that would have solved all these problems. And like I said 5 minutes ago, the problem with this situation is Manfred. He is the worst GM in all of sports. All these sports are back, right? All these sports are back, and they're all about to fire up. I think hockey starts today, right? Hockey starts today?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, and there's not going to be a problem. There's not going to be a problem at all. Basketball seems to be off without a hitch, right? Baseball, just problem after problem after problem. And the problem with Manfred, he's not taking any responsibility for this whatsoever. He's just blaming the players like a total piece of you-know-what. There's absolutely no need for it. I don't appreciate it. I don't respect it. If he came out and said, you know what, we're not doing the right thing. We need to do a better job. We need to get a handle on this situation. At least I'd respect that. He said, our players, he didn't even say our players. He said, the players are not doing the right thing. They have a big list of rules and they aren't following them. Like an upset parent is absolutely disrespectful. I really don't appreciate it. I don't like him. I think he's an awful job. He's just an awful commissioner. He's doing an awful job, and he's the problem.
Who's the worst? Him or Goodell?
No, Manfred is a terrible commissioner, but on this, the Players Association didn't want to do a bubble, so that's out of his hands. I mean, the players have to be responsible as much as they can. And when it comes out that Marlins players are at the strip club, or what's the other team that just canceled games? They were at a casino. Like it comes down to players' responsibility as much as well. Manfred is awful, I agree, but the Players Association didn't want to do the bubble. And so it's on to the players or the organizations to be as responsible as they can be.
Yeah.
And
but
that's it. Like we can't
And John, in the end, he's garbage. And we're gonna end it on that. He's garbage. When we come right back, we got a special segment coming up. My man, Zero Fox, coming up after this. Boom! Fired up!